Hey, Asa,
Hi,
what's up? Finally.
how are you? I'm so sorry. I just couldn't. I was trying so hard to refresh my screen and stuff. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you? How are you?
I'm
How's
well.
it going?
Been a good week, been a hectic week, but let's do this. I'm very excited for this live
Why?
because I've not really gotten to speak or discuss this subject with anyone. Like people think of mental health, physical health, emotional health, and spiritual health as four different aspects. Whereas they're so interconnected, and food and nutrition in relation to this is something I haven't gotten to speak with anyone about. So very excited for this.
But I'm really glad that there are three people on this slide. There's Akshay also, Akshay Vag. He's like this brilliant guy. I don't know if you've heard of him, but Akshay Vag is absolutely phenomenal in terms of recovery. And he just put something
Okay.
about my diet program and all. And I'm so glad that he joined us. In case if he has the time, I would like to probably invite him later on
Oh,
just to have a quick chat.
lovely.
Also,
Yeah.
he's fabulous and he has this setup over here called Performance. And first, we'll speak about what you do, and we'll quickly introduce you to the people who have joined in and who will see this live later on. So, without taking too much of your time, Asta, can you tell everybody who's going to watch this what is it that you do?
So I have a mental health podcast called Slow Down with Astha, where we discuss mental health awareness aspects, and the aim is to kind of destigmatize the impression that people have and to spread awareness about mental health not just being restricted to depression and anxiety. So that's the aim. Before that, I had a jewelry business because, well, I mean, a spiritual jewelry brand actually. And in the pandemic, because that took a hit, I was going through a very major turmoil in my life, and podcasts were picking up abroad. And that started, I used to listen to a lot of podcasts, which really helped me shift my perspective in terms of what I was going through mentally, how to deal with the adversity and things that were just not in my control. And then I started thinking about many aspects in terms of why isn't someone over here doing something like this? Why aren't people talking about this? And in my immediate circle, of course, a couple of things happened. I lost someone to suicide. I used to go for therapy sessions myself, and I started noticing that, if I would bump into a friend of mine at therapy, they'd say, "Hey, listen, like, don't tell our friends in common that I go for therapy and don't want to talk about it and stuff." So I come from a family where everyone is very pro mental health, pro taking help for yourself. And I couldn't understand why people get so scared to say I'm going for therapy and counseling, because for me it was damn normal. It was like my parents would say, if you're going through something difficult, go get help. If you feel you need someone to hold your hand through it. So that pushed me to do what I'm doing right now, which is the main focus, and that is spreading mental health awareness.
Yeah. But yeah, it's that's what I wanted to ask, and you kind of answered the question before I even asked you that what actually got you to spread awareness about mental health, and you said that there was a personal story attached to it, which a
Yeah.
personal tragedy rather attached to it, because of which you decided to spread awareness about mental health.
Mhm.
But how crucial do you think it is today for people to seek help, or how crucial do you think it is for people to be more aware about like what kind of solutions are there for mental health?
Very important, Pratik. I feel, first of all, very unfortunately, we're living in a world where the line between, the distinction between what a person is going through and what they show their life to look like is very, very different. It's very easy for us to just go online and see everyone killing it in life and say, oh shit, like my life doesn't look like this. So am I doing something wrong? It's easy to develop insecurities, to develop a sense of instability and a lack of confidence and self-worth, all of which are aspects which are so crucial to mental well-being. Secondly, Pratik, like people have a misconception that, acha, only if I'm severely depressed, I need help. There are so many experiences we have in life where, it changes us and we don't know how to deal with it. It could be the loss of a loved one. It could be a really ugly breakup. It could be absolutely anything. It could be you set up an entire business and a financial, a strain has come on you which you can't cope with and you don't know what to do. So many people take their lives because they just don't know what to do and their business has failed. These are things also which you could just reach out for help and say, how do I come back to a healthy way of thinking, or how do I process this loss of this person, or how do I, deal with this failure that I have had in my career. And that's where I think people need to be more open to taking help. It's not the major stuff. It's not only, I'm feeling horrible. It's even the tiny things in your life which you could be struggling to deal with.
Yeah, I think in today's fast-paced life, we are not only dealing with our to-do list, like a conventional to-do list, like what we need to do,
Yeah.
but while we're dealing with all of that, we also accumulate so many mixed emotions, which we obviously are not trained to in our regular schooling lives or regular life also as growing up. We don't
Yeah.
know how to process those emotions. We don't know how to handle those emotions, and those
Yeah.
emotions, unfortunately or fortunately, depends on what state you are at or what place you are at in life, determine how you are feeling physically,
Mm-hmm.
which most people aren't aware of. Like, I'm just having a very bad day today. I'm not feeling so great, and it's not difficult to admit that. But if you're not feeling great, there are certain ways that you can use, and certain therapies that you can use, or certain NLP techniques that you can use, which will get you in the right frame of mind, right? But unfortunately, there's not a lot of awareness. So I have a lot of respect for people like you who are trying to spread more awareness because it's so crucial, right? Uh, but have you also have a story, right? Because of which you decided to do
Yeah.
this. So can you let all the viewers and listeners know about that?
Sure. So, my experience, I'd say, with mental health related challenges came when I just passed out of college. I think that was 2014. And
Hmm.
I was having a really ugly phase in my personal life. And at the same time, I was trying to figure out my career. Okay, what do I
Heartbreak.
want to do? Heartbreak, full heartbreak. And, Prateek,
It's
I've
funny how
always
we can
been
laugh
some.
about it now, na?
I know now I look back, but that was my first most crushing experience. I can say
Yeah.
that. And now I look back and I laugh and I'm like, oh wow, it changed me and it changed the trajectory of my life. But at that time, it was hell for me to deal with. And of course, there was a lot of physical and emotional abuse involved. So for
I'm
me,
sure.
I couldn't process the idea of oh, even if you are good to people, it's no guarantee that someone will treat you well in return. So my worldview kind of shifted with that experience, and I didn't know how to deal with those feelings. It was so new to
Yeah.
me. And in any case, I was always a very scared person, and I would never communicate if I was going through something. I would bottle it up. And slowly, over a year or so, I was I was always conscious about my diet and my working out. And out of the blue, I was hit by a diagnosis of PCOS and thyroid. And the funny thing is, I couldn't understand, I didn't know it until, this sounds really random, but until an energy healer told me that I went for a healing session and she said, look, you're not expressing yourself. There's a blockage in your throat
Throat
energy
chakra.
and yeah, your throat chakra. And are you someone who has been through an experience where you've not been able to tell someone how you feel about it or speak to people about it? And later on, that's when I started putting two and two together because my face used to bloat in the morning, like way after 5 hours after I would wake up, my face would still look as if I've just woken up from my sleep. And I started then, when I went to an endocrinologist and he did a couple of tests, is when I figured that I have thyroid. And there became a battle of also I was piling on weight and I couldn't understand. There's a frustration of I'm doing everything right, I'm eating right, I'm working out right. Why am I gaining this weight? And it was all the emotional and mental stress of what I was going through that really put my physical health through a horrible challenge. And that's when my journey began, where I started taking help for myself mentally. I also was doing a lot of energy work and I started exploring the field of how can I let out these emotions without having to lash out a person, or being aware of the concept of emotional awareness.
Yeah.
So I would write down my feelings a lot. I would do a lot of deep meditations where I would, talk things out. And you won't believe it, over a year of meditation, sticking to my workout, working on my own self mentally because my confidence went for a toss. It affected how I was showing up in the real world. I had lack of self worth. I had lack of self belief. I was just struggling to find some sense of confidence in myself. That was my personal experience. And thereafter, it took a good 3 or 4 years of different modalities, reading a lot about NLP, EFT, talking to psychologists, taking therapy, working on my health as well. And finally, things became better. So that's been my journey. And that's how I figured, okay, this is an ecosystem. You can't just, mental health affects your emotional health, affects your physical health, and it's all a vicious circle.
Yeah, and the thing is that you can use this circle to your advantage also, right? And then no matter whatever life has to throw at you, you just equip yourself with the right tools and skill sets so that you can handle it better. But Asa, tell me, when you were going through that phase, like you said, 2, 3 years or 4 years rather, at the start, did you observe any kind of emotional eating patterns or disorders of sorts that you're piling on weight? Can you like speak
Of
a little bit on that?
course. Oh, I'm half Punjabi, so the love for food is just genetically built in us. We just need an excuse to go and belt those parathas. But I can't tell you the amount of times, when your mental health is in a slump and you also start feeling the lack of confidence, there's this mentality of, forget it now, nothing is going to work for me anyway. Why am I eating healthy? Might as well, eat food that will make me feel happy right now. Might as well eat the cake, might as well eat the brownie. I did a lot of that, binge eating, emotional eating. And it would be extremes, either tyrant level discipline of no, 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 get your life in order, or fully letting go and saying morning to night, I will only eat kachra, I don't care.
Yeah.
So it was completely, very mood dependent though. Very, very mood dependent. The minute I'm lower, I'm feeling like I want to cry, but I don't know how to let it out, stuff your face in food. So, and I was aware of it. I'll be very honest. I think everyone who uses food as a negative coping mechanism is aware, even in that moment, that I'm eating right now because I'm stressed or I'm low or I want to cry. It's not something that you don't realize, but you still proceed with doing it
Yeah.
because in that moment, that's the only thing that is going to give you comfort. So I've had those experiences, of course, and it has really, there's no easy way to break through. I would say you need discipline. For me, I feel anything in life you need discipline, whether you want to achieve a physical goal, a fitness goal, a mental health goal, um, change your way of thinking. It requires consistency. So it was that discipline of actually feeling like going for that healthy food and then saying, no, this is just temporary. Put it down. I can eat something else that is good for my body, that is more nutritive for me. It was consciously training the brain to not do that action that eventually, made it like disempowered me, that thing from happening in terms of then it became a habit to say, okay, now, how it becomes easier. It's like building a muscle. Like you start getting used to it, and then eventually it becomes easy for you to say, okay, you know what, I'm just going to be stress eating now. Okay, I don't need to do it. But it was an effort. It was really an effort.
I'm sure, like because like how you said, it disempowered you to like accept it, but at the same time, it empowered you to reject foods that are not suiting you. Because ultimately, the thing that I speak with my clients is when they have such bouts of emotional eating, and I'm kind of the opposite. When I'm going through stress, I don't eat. I can't eat. I just cannot eat because that's the wiring that I have. But what happens is I tell my clients whenever they're going for an emotional eating pattern or they've observed it and most of them are aware of it. So I just ask them to probably slow down at that time, take a moment to just understand how they would feel probably a few hours later, a few hours after consuming that. Like I've done it too, right? I've sat with tubs of ice creams and cookies and whatnot just to like drown my feelings in it initially, and then now it's changed where I don't eat at all. I need to get better at that as well, and I've been going to therapy for so I think in the last 2.5 years or 2 years rather,
Mm-hmm.
and it's helped me a lot in just
Yeah.
understanding patterns, being more aware about things, being more aware about how I process my emotions because it's going to be different for everybody, and
Mm-hmm.
just like fitness, just like nutrition, there is no one size fits all solution. So that just cannot be
Yeah.
because ultimately, like how you rightly said, everybody tries to go to a therapist only when it's like like
Major.
amplified into something really major. But like you absorb a lot of emotions, you go through a lot of emotions, so you require that outlet or that cushion or that sponge where you can like probably express yourself and release those emotions or understand how to deal with those
Yeah.
emotions. Uh, have you have you had any kind of body dysmorphia issues?
Before I come to that, Pratik, you spoke about how you're the other extreme where you don't feel like eating. I've been at that end as well, where in my severe depression, I would just stop eating. I have lost like 6 and 7 kilos because I just stopped eating. And there's this, I would just live on coffee. And that's not that that's a healthy thing to do. It's my coffee time as well. But I would literally just, it's just lost. You don't care about anything. It's that state where nothing matters to you. You don't find a point in waking up and doing things and caring about yourself and all. So, not that that is healthy either. Um, I haven't had, I'd say body dysmorphic disorder is very severe. It's literally to the extent of fixating over a certain flaw you may have, which could be as tiny as a stretch mark on your body or a birthmark on your body to just your entire body itself. I've had body insecurity issues definitely when I was piling on weight. And it's such a vicious circle because your confidence is shattered. And because your confidence is shattered, you stop stepping out. You become more of a recluse. You sit more at home. You sit more at home. So, what is there to do? Nothing. Eat, watch movies, be a couch potato. So, that circle which you get into is so dangerous. And once you're in it, I don't want to trivialize mental health and say that, oh, if you're depressed, eating healthy is going to change it. No, it's a very important aspect for sure. Nutrition, eating correctly, working out and stuff. But at the same time, I think body dysmorphic disorder is something which really everyone who has it knows it. It's something that you really will need not just the intervention of nutritional coach. You also need to then work on your mental health, and it could be either. It could be you go to the extent of either being bulimic and like throwing up your food because you don't want to eat, or you're paranoid about piling on the weight, or it could be the other extreme where you just are so disgusted at your body that you just keep eating to emotionally cope with it. I haven't been on at that severe a level, but definitely body insecurity issues. And I think every girl goes through it as you're growing up. Every girl goes through it. I would say even men. Why even, the growing up years are hard.
100%. Like I'm going to say something controversial right now. I don't know, like it's going to stir up a few emotions, maybe. I don't know, but I don't care as well. Like, but what I feel is that a lot of people who go on the other side of the spectrum, like you said, that they get trapped into that cycle where they start consuming more food because of some disorder, and they're like, you know what, just screw it, I'm going to eat whatever I want. And then because of this trending train that's going on everywhere, where people are like pro body positivity and extremely accepting of how their body looks, they start accepting that as a normal. You know
Mm,
what I mean? And there have been
yeah.
recent deaths, and I think we spoke about this earlier. There have been deaths by like not fitness, but body positivity influencers in the West who started embracing that as a way of life and said that, you know what, I'm going to eat whatever I want, and this is how my
Yeah.
body is, and I'm going to
Yeah.
accept it. And they actually died because of that. Like they had proper physical illnesses, mental illnesses that manifested into physical illnesses, and they actually perished because of that. So, and that's why, and this is a subject which is very close to me because nutrition is extremely close to me. So I feel that there has to be some awareness or some intervention that's brought in at that point of time. If somebody's aware about consuming their feelings with food, they need to seek help for sure, like irrespective. And like
Yeah.
uh, you
I
say something.
100% agree. Yeah, because you know what? A couple of months ago, I saw this video of one of these TikTokers who was like stuffing her face with a burger, and she was obese. I don't know why, first of all, when you use this word obese, people say you're body shaming someone. It is a word. Like she was obese and she was stuffing her face with a dessert and tagged it as self-love and spoiling yourself. And I found that so bizarre because yes, I mean self-love to me and should not be temporarily stuffing your face and encourage. It's unhealthy eating. Nowhere in the world should that be encouraged, irrespective of what size you are. That's so detrimental to your health. And yes, it's one thing to say it's great that you can be confident in spite of having that kind of a body, but to encourage that and say that, yeah, you should aim to be like this and not take care of your health and stuff your face with what you want because it's self love, I think is so dangerous. It's so dangerous.
Yeah, and people are seeing that, right? And
Yeah.
like the term influences, that you're influencing people. So people are seeing that and they're getting carried away and they're like, okay, you know what, I can eat, and this is how I'm accepting that. There is absolutely no benefit of carrying extra body fat. Like just as there is no health benefit of having alcohol, there is no benefit of having extra body fat. Like,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
it's great to be confident, like you rightly said. I should be confident and you should accept that how you are right now, but the constant urge to get better has to exist in a human being. You have to get better, you have to get healthier so that you can show up for the people who love you and people who you love in the right
Yeah.
capacity. You don't want them to be taking care of you or running around with hospitals or doctors and trying to fix you or trying to get you better. And that's something that I think is a personal obligation towards everybody to take care of themselves.
I
Uh,
think you hit the nail on the head because even recently I was reading about someone who was not obese but overweight. And when he realized that he needs to do something about it, I'm not remembering who was when he had a child and he realized that playing with the child was tiring him out. And he said, I want these beautiful experiences in my life. I want to be able to run up the flight of stairs with my kid on my shoulder. So that, though it was that realization of I need to be better, I want these experiences. I don't want to be a burden on my kid. I can't even run up a flight of stairs with my kid to play with them. And that is so important. That realization is so important that you
yeah,
shouldn't be a liability on people, and it's a deterrent towards you having beautiful experiences with people.
absolutely. Like, I know, but I think with your platform and the work that you're doing, you are definitely like encouraging a lot of people and spreading more awareness about it. How has your experience been so far setting up this entire platform, getting guests over? How many struggles have you faced in this journey? Can you
Lots.
share that with us?
Oh, lots. There are so many times where, of course, when I wanted to start, there are tiny things where people will say, "Acha, YouTube channel nahi hai, no, we're not interested." And like, there's this obsession. Actually, podcast is supposed to be an audio medium. Now it's become vodcast, which is video and audio. While setting up, of course, there were fun challenges which were like, okay, I had to undergo a little bit of voice training. I had to observe how people host. I had to, understand what is the correct way to intrude a guest while they are speaking without it coming across as rude. So there are these subtle skills which I had to like pick up. But the hard part was getting people as guests, like when, especially season one, it's such a numbers game today. You live in a world where you need good guests for people to listen to you, but at the same time, you're a newbie. So to get those guests to say yes to you is like such an effort, and you really have to. It's the normal hustle. I won't complain about it, where you have to prove that okay, this conversation is relevant. It's different from what you've done earlier. You study your guest very thoroughly and you pitch to them that look, this is the tone of the conversation and this is why it's relevant to have this kind of a conversation. So it's been a great learning journey. I still have a lot to learn. I have so many podcasters who I listen to and say, wow, like I want to be able to speak like this person. I want to articulate my thoughts like this person. um Very challenging because, as I said, like this is a very numbers world. When even like if you get very good guests, it's all about what's your social media following, what's your platform numbers and stuff. So it's very difficult to strike that balance between focusing on your work and wanting to make a difference without having to get stuck into this numbers game as a career.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to figure out right now. So it's a cause that's close to my heart, and there's so many aspects like Pratik. There's mood disorders, there's personality disorders, as we're speaking. There's actually a breed of nutritional psychology that is being recognized in the West. And the funny part is they're studying Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine to understand just the concepts of nutritive eating and eating for your mental wellness. There's so many things to talk about, but very few like guests who confirm with us, or like it's challenging in its own way.
I know. I mean, I too have a platform like that where we speak about health and fitness and food and all that, and it's a struggle for us too, like to get clients and just willing to have a chat with us or speak about their journey. Not a lot of people are willing to even open up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is a challenge, but overall the space that you're in, my question to you was more with respect to that, like the space that you're in
Okay.
right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
How receptive are people to speak about that? because for fitness and wellness थोड़ा बहुत लोग बात कर लेते हैं, they're open to it
Yeah,
because they want
yeah.
to share that. That's something that they're more proud of, that they've achieved a workout or they've achieved a certain kind of body. But this is something in, internal, and
Internal, yeah.
not a lot of people
Personal, it's
like.
very personal.
Yeah, and people are also like, yeah, there's a certain stigma attached to it, right? The people are like, I don't know how I'll be perceived, it'll change my reputation and all that. So, A is that, and B is also with your support, with your environment, like how many people are supporting you in this cause, because you had a different career before this, right?
Yeah.
And then you transitioned into something completely different.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I want to know more of.
Well, in my experience, it's been amazing in both ways because there's a lot of people who really, really believe in what I do, and they really do want the platform to come forth with their experiences. They do look forward to having these conversations. I'm happy to notice that the mentality is changing now, where people are very okay with coming and saying, you know what, I really want to talk about my experience. So, funnily, what I thought would be an issue actually has never been, and people have been very supportive. And the mental health practitioners that we have on the platform are always looking for a platform to go and talk about, to spread awareness, be it about suicide, self harm, parenting issues, postpartum depression, whatever it's been. I've never faced any resistance either from a practitioner or from a person who is speaking from the experience point of view of being at the receiving end of it. And even for me, I think my support system, my friends, my immediate family, everyone has had my back from day one. I've been very, very fortunate. I'll tell you, in my life, if there's one thing, I've always had I've had people around me who always boost my morale, and like they tell me, no, what you're doing is awesome. I have been my own worst enemy. That's the
Aren't we
irony
all?
of life. Even Aren't we
Aren't we
all?
all?
I'm telling you, there's no one out there who's ever. My mom and dad are super supportive. My friends have, I could say the stupidest thing, I could come up with the dumbest idea, and I'll have a support system that goes like, yeah, do it, awesome. But I will be my own worst enemy, where I'll have this voice in my head saying, are you sure you want to do this? You don't know anything about this field. Like, how you going to figure this stuff out and stuff. So both ways, I have great support. It's from that point of view, no resistance at all. No resistance at all. But
And
Prateek,
go ahead, go
I
ahead.
want to share one experience, which is, I understood this aspect of respecting the body like our body is so beautiful. Like it's like a complicated piece of machinery where everything is supposed to happen at a specific time. And there was a workshop I did by this very famous neuro coach called Coach Saloni Suri. And she also happened to be a guest on my podcast. But what I thought would be a neuro coaching workshop ended up teaching me so much about just the neurochemicals in the brain and how beautifully our hormones and our neurochemicals work to stabilize our mood. They have a certain function, there's a certain time by which they have to be secreted. And when you work in alignment with that, you see such a dramatic shift in your physical health, your mental health, and your emotional health. And that has been very, very crucial to my journey of well-being. Whenever I've been like in Rishikesh doing a retreat, and I actually push myself to wake up at 5 in the morning, and we sleep by like 10 p.m., which is not something I do in Bombay. I saw such a dramatic shift in my way of thinking, in how often I would have a bad thought about my work or my life. My body felt different. It felt so energetic. It didn't feel hyper. It didn't feel lethargic either. And that is what I feel people need to have, that thirst for knowledge, because knowledge is the first step to implementing any transformative change in your life.
Yeah, and did you observe when you changed like how you said in Rishikesh, you woke up a little earlier, but so that kind of shifts your circadian rhythm, right? It
Yeah.
shifts, it aligns you more with the sunrise and sunset.
Mhm.
Uh, do you think that also plays a significant role in how you think?
Hugely, because I mean, if you're the minute you're waking up late, your body wakes up triggering cortisol, which is the stress hormone, which is why
Yes.
you wake up in a state of being flustered. And I have a very strict rule I follow, which is I don't touch my phone for the first 1 hour of the day. Instead, I'm working on I don't even talk to anyone. And it's like a strict rule. Don't enter my room till I come out of my room because I have my own routine, my mental routine that I do.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, definitely. I mean, when when you work with in alignment with the neurochemicals of your brain and the hormones, you will feel
Uh-huh.
that shift for sure. You'll feel it. Like, I mean, even your dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, everything gets going by a certain time in the day, and it is supposed to wind down also by a certain time in the day. So the more you're disrupting and playing with the system and trying to train it to go against itself, the first impact at least in my experience, I feel is directly on my mental health. There's a certain sense of when I come to Bombay and I get back to this, slightly late sleeping or, work stress kind of a thing. I know I'm more irritable through the day. I know I would tend to snap, whereas whenever I've slept in alignment with my circadian rhythm, even if I'm having a crappy day, I'm just somehow mentally dealing with it very differently.
Wow. You had like a fabulous panel of guests on your podcast. Like I was scrolling through the entire podcast, seeing all the videos, and I loved it. Uh, any memorable conversations, like any experts, anything that you want to share with us? Because I saw this one where, I mean, obviously it's a big name, so I don't want to use his name, but I'm going to still have his name. Like you had Siddharth Malia also, right, over there, and
Yeah.
he shared something, and he had a very transformative journey, and he's had a very difficult life because of obvious reasons, and he
Mm-hmm.
was overweight too, and he's lost a lot of weight,
Mm-hmm.
and there is a certain correlation between him losing weight and his mental health as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to pick that as a story, but that just kind of stuck with me. But if there's any other story that you want to share with us.
There's two. One is Coach Saloni Suri, who was a guest of mine, and she said something really powerful about how your body is the pharmacy. You don't need external medication if you just learn how to work in alignment with your hormones and your neurochemicals. And everything that we need is inside our bodies. You just have to learn to hack it and work with it and respect it for what it does. So that's
Correct.
one thing that was very empowering for me in the conversation. The second one is actually with Sid Malia, not the conversation itself, but in preparation for his conversation, I had to actually read his first book, which is called If I'm Honest. And it was a very, very honest memoir of his mental health journey. And I've been so open with him. I told him, I said, look, I've known what he was, the IPL boy, the bad boy, the kid who had it all. And all of us who have been exposed to Indian media knew what reputation he had. In the book, when you hear his side of the story right from his childhood experiences, he very openly speaks about how unstable his parents' marriage was, how he was randomly introduced to a world of stepbrothers and half sisters who he had to adjust with, or he was thrown to live with his mother who was absolutely alone and the house was empty. If you read his book, you suddenly, you know how they say never judge a book by its cover, and this is the biggest stigma there is in mental health. My friend who I lost to suicide came from a very wealthy family, and when it came out in the news, every journalist said, oh, but why was he sad? He drove a BMW. So that's where our understanding of mental health is, right? Wealth means you have no reason to be sad. How can you be depressed? It's the same thing that happened when Deepika came out with her struggle. People said, Arey, she's worth so many crores, she's got endorsement deals, what could she be sad about? So in his book, it's not my conversation with him as such, but while preparing for that, when I read his book, it was such an eye opener because you actually empathize and you say, oh my God, the next time I see someone behaving strangely, or I think their life looks like a certain way to me, I should not judge because you have no clue what on earth could be going on in that person or what they're
Yeah,
dealing
and
with in their life.
uh, but does that lead someone to become like a toxic empath as well? Because it kind of, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, begs to ask the question. I mean, there's always, I think even I've had even toxic positivity and stuff are things that I'm very against.
Yeah.
I'm not a person who believes in just, saying, oh, everything should be great and all of that stuff. I think that's where you have to have that sense of discernment in terms of saying, yes, I empathize to an extent, I know there are people who go the other extreme, and in the process of empathizing with someone, they put up with a lot of toxicity from that person. Ever go. I wouldn't say put up with anything that someone puts you through.
Yeah.
Um, it's a dilemma, right? I have so many people in my life who I know who are living with a person with mental health illness, and it's not easy, especially if you're dealing with extreme cases like bipolarity or things like that. It is very difficult. You can have a person loving you with all their heart for 5 minutes, and the next minute flinging something at your face. So where do you draw the line in terms of saying, I'm willing to help you to this extent, but after this, it's toxic for me, so I will take a step back.
Yeah.
That I love you, but that doesn't mean I have to be at the receiving end of this throughout.
Boundaries.
That is the boundary. Yeah, that's where the boundary comes, and recognizing when something is also taking a toll on your mental wellness and taking a
Yeah.
step back from it then.
Yeah. But I think
And we
as a
get
society,
stuck
we
in that
just
loop.
exactly. That's what I was saying. That as a society, we just train to become like these people pleasers, and we just train to accommodate everybody else's emotions before ours, and then just so that we are liked or we are accepted. In that process, we end up self-hurting. And I think because of your platform and the practitioners that are coming on your platform or the guests that are coming on your platform, it just makes people more aware that they have to first of all set their own personal boundaries, and once they have set their personal boundaries, then they can start working on themselves, so that you protect yourself from the environment that you're in, because we are exposed to a lot of toxins, a lot of trauma, a lot of other things also in the environment which could cause us more harm. So you create that entire protective layer around you, and then you
Yeah.
start working on yourself. That makes it a lot more easier. uh,
And
Lovely,
also,
yeah. So
Prateek,
this is
one thing is I feel now we're abusing mental health as well. Now it's become cool to say I take therapy. Now it's become cool to say I have depression. We're using these words. I know a lot of people who are
very loosely.
misusing these words or using it very loosely in order to get away with poor behavior, if I could say so.
Yeah.
And like that's unfortunately the direction in which our world is headed. There's a lot of misinformation. There are a lot of people, like I speak about this often. The other day, a friend of mine was on a dating app, and he came one day very disturbed, and he told me, he said, this chick, she accused me of gaslighting her because she said he didn't reply to her message for 2 hours or something. Now, gaslighting is a very, very severe word. It's actually making someone believe that their version of reality is different.
Also,
But
yeah.
today, people use it the minute I'm triggered or you say something to me, you're gaslighting me, you're gaslighting me. And that's so strong. Like, we really need to be careful of the words we're using and understand I mean, how to articulate what we're going through. You can say, I was upset that you didn't reply to me, but to use these words and throw them around, and then tell someone that you're responsible for my mental health being poor today is irresponsible. That's us letting ourselves off the hook.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, so this could be the toxic empath in me that is kind of saying this, right? But at the same time, it's true, but it's true. But what happens is that once you understand the person who's saying it does not have that sense of awareness about the terms, and they're not as educated about it, or they have not dealt with things, and their knowledge is limited. Like, because you come across with people who use other illnesses very loosely and other words very loosely. We've had celebrities use different words very loosely. So it's more about how you accept it and how you process it. And again, those boundaries come into play, because it's very easy to get affected by what somebody else might say, but you know your truth, and you have to create that protective layer around you so that you can process information that's thrown at you from any side. And usually the people who do that are the ones that we hold closer to us, who can affect
Mm. Yeah.
our mental state or emotional state. So
Mm.
it that becomes the challenging part. And I think the time and age that we are in right now, where we are exposed to so much information from different experts coming, like from our phones, from colleagues, from friends, it can get really overwhelming also. I see we are in
Absolutely.
this time of people just constantly saying red flags for everything. Uh,
That is so true. I'm seeing that a lot. Green flag, red flag. Everything is classified like that.
yeah, and it's not like that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like it's like life is not just being.
Contextual. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all like situational. It's all about like how people are having the relationships, how good you are at communicating, how good you are at comprehending. So we have to keep learning. We have to keep evolving. Uh, Tell me about fitness now, because that's my subject. Now, in terms of correlation between your mental health and your physical health, what do you think plays a bigger role? I personally feel that emotional health determines how you can show up in the physical health and nutrition, your food habits and stuff like that. So I always work with my clients on their emotional health a little bit because I'm
Hmm.
not a trained mental health practitioner, but I try to scan and identify what are the things or the reasons that they are kind of eating their feelings around or having those kind of issues with, and then I can start working on the fitness and nutrition and other stuff like that. But what is your opinion on it?
Well, there's a very direct correlation with mental and physical health. You work out, you feel better. There's dopamine, there's endorphins. Neurochemically, the minute you work out itself, you're releasing good stuff for your brain, if I may, make it that easy. Um, Also, what happens when you see yourself get better, you're in a motivated state. I think it's very important. Like you look, mentally there's a shift that happens. Whether you're in a motivated state towards your work or it's a physical, like when you see you can lift a heavier weight than what you could 3 days ago, or you can do more reps of something, or you see your strength getting better. It's very motivating, and that they say, right, there's a motivational switch in the brain where it's very essential in pulling you out of low phases in your life.
Yeah.
For me, I feel taking care of my body, I did it as a vengeance. To be honest, when I started piling on weight, I was told very clearly by my endocrinologist who had put me on every thyroid medication, Eltroxin, Cytomid, Aldactone. I was on everything, and he said, "Look, you need to accept one thing, that with your medical condition, if you try and work out and the way a normal human being would, even if they lose 7 kgs, you will lose 0.7 grams. So you have to accept it. This is how it is going to be." And I think that broke me, where something, I lost my head and I said, I'm going to do this. Now I have to do this. So I went into overdrive mode. Like I would obsessively
Extreme.
work out, and yeah, extreme. And not, I don't want to endorse this, but I abused my body. I literally abused my body. I was under eating and overworking out, and I lost like a lot of weight.
More than
I,
0.7 kgs.
of course, lost. I lost 22 kilos in 3 months. So,
Whoa.
of course, I'm not proud of it, because the minute, I mean, it took me 3 months to see the after effects that my body started going through. So I was looking good and my confidence was like, yeah, now my clothes fit better. If you lose weight the sustainable way, it does make you feel better. Your clothes fit better. The way you show up in the world is better. Mentally, you're just a lot more confident. Even I found subtle changes in myself. Like in a situation where I would be too, shy to express myself, I found myself being very confidently assertive of my point of view in work. Something I don't know, but there was definitely a very physical and mental connect in that. Though I don't endorse going nuts like I did, because invariably after that, when my hair started falling in clumps and I realized what my body was going through and how nutritionally deprived
Depleted.
it was just a matter of time before that weight just piled back on me. So anyone who's tuning into this, please don't do that. Please don't abuse your
That's
body. Your
that's
body is a
exactly what I
temple.
was going to ask you. That
Yeah.
when you lost 20 plus kgs in 3 odd months, how much time did it take you to gain it all back or gain some of it back? Because that's what usually
I
happens.
gained, and I didn't go. I started eating normally. Pratik, I went from under eating and starving myself and doing these ridiculous like military diets and stuff to eating normal food again. I didn't go nuts. I've never been a burger, pizza, pasta kid.
Hmm.
I piled on. I gained about 12 to 13 kgs back in a span of 2 months. 2 months. And
So
that's
the net,
when I realized that I have really abused my body to do
yeah.
this. And I was looking haggard. Everyone said, you've lost a lot of weight, but the glow on your face is gone. You're looking tired. That's when I realized, damn, I need to reverse this. This was not the
Yes.
way I should have gone about it at all. And that was another 6-month journey to slowly say, I will not abuse my body, I will do this the correct way. I will not abuse my body, I will do this the correct way. So there began that journey. It's
I
so
know,
easy, right? To feel like crap, to feel like, you feel, I'll tell you what, the vengeance to do that was from a very why me? Why me? Why do I have to have PCOS and
yeah,
thyroid? Why do I have to go through this experience? It was that vengeance, that anger of just mentally not, of just feeling like a victim of life that I was channelizing in a wrong way.
yeah,
Maybe if I had someone guide me correctly, and I didn't have someone telling me that what you want is not possible, and just accept it, you're never going to be able to do this, that madness that I had, that why me, why do I have to go through this, would have been dramatically less.
yeah.
And that's where I think, it's so important. There are, in those days we didn't have social media, we were not, today's kids are very aware on who to reach out to for help,
Yeah.
so people like you are much more accessible and heard of. People know about motivational coaches, habit coaches, nutritional coaches, but at that time there was nothing. It was take it in your own hands and do what you have heard is correct.
No, absolutely. And yeah, I think we all go through this. We all have to go through that kind of a journey where we make miscalculated steps or aggressive steps, where we work more from the ego and less from the id. And we just, kind of get into that cycle. But then understanding it and breaking it. Like I have clients who are like 50, 55-year-old or 60 plus years. And they also come with the same thing that I've done this before. I've dropped 20 kgs in a couple of months, so I can do it again. I'm going to eat one meal a day,
Mm.
and just counseling them and making sure that they understand how the body works and how sustainable changes work and how slow our body responds to things. That's what I do my major practice or my major coaching with. And then food is simple, right? And you can go on Chat GPT and get any kind of diet plan, and you can put in your preferences, and AI will generate things for you. But getting people to follow it and understanding why they have to follow it is the biggest challenge. And that's the approach that I have with my practice. But yeah,
Also,
I
food is so instrumental in preventing cognitive decline. Like now, see, one is mental health also includes things like eventually when you grow old, you can have Alzheimer's, schizophrenia, Parkinson's, and things like that. Then there's normal age-related cognitive decline that also happens. Eating correctly from a young age is the one key factor in slowing down the cognitive decline. And so people really, I believe at least, need to see nutrition not just from the point of view of I eat well for a
calories.
good body. You need to see it from a point of view of literally you're fueling your body correctly for better mental and emotional and physical health, because you're eating for your hormones, you're eating for your gut health, which today everyone is knows is your second brain. It's very instrumental in regulating your moods and the way you feel through the day. So that perspective, I feel, which I've learned over many years, and of course, I've been able to speak to a lot of people. I've read so many books. I recently read a book called by this girl who goes by the name Glucose Goddess on understanding how sugars affect the body. And I have diabetic parents, so I wanted to understand it better. But our perspective towards how we see food and the food choices we make really needs to shift.
Yeah, yeah. I think we should work, or maybe through our platform or through our chat, we'll be able to spread more awareness about that, and we'll be able to
I would
educate
love
people.
to.
Yeah, maybe we should do one
And
of those and
we should, we
spread more awareness about
really
it.
should.
Yeah,
We really should.
because
And
one
the
thing that
podcast
I've
hosted
observed.
me. Yeah.
Sorry,
No,
the
no,
connection was
please.
lagging. I didn't know you were speaking. Please, you go ahead.
The podcast host in me is very curious to ask you why is nutrition and healthy eating so close to you?
Sorry, I lost you. What? I lost you after
Am
what?
I audible?
Yeah.
Am I audible now? Okay. The podcast host in me really wants to ask you how nutrition and wellness and fitness became so close to you.
I don't usually get this question. So I was an overweight kid till the age of 16. I lost my entire paternal side to diabetes and obesity. Like diabetes was the undertone, and it kind of then led to different comorbid issues. Where I lost my dad at a very young age to cirrhosis of the liver, but that was because of alcoholism. I lost his three sisters went because of diabetes and heart issues. So I did see that a lot of issues in my gene or my bloodline were because of excessive weight gain or metabolic disorders that came because of excessive weight. And I didn't want to lead that kind of life. Yet I was overweight, so I literally went and blackmailed my favorite aunt, and I told her that if you don't let me join the gym, then I'll never ever come to meet you. And like everybody else, I just went into the gym, started doing tons and tons of cardio, lost a little bit of weight, was eating rubbish, and I was not able to lose the weight like that I wanted to. And then I started educating myself more and more and more and more and more. Uh, and while I was doing other things in life, I was just self-educating, reading different books, signing up for different courses, uh, understanding it furthermore. And then, like after learning the technicalities of it, much later in life, I realized that a lot of things are driven by emotions and your environment. So, because I used to create plans for my friends and families as well, and I would be like, okay, take this, try this, and they would be like, I can't do this right now, this is happening, can't do this right now, this is happening, and I would be like, okay, fine. Maybe they're not receptive to it, but why they were not receptive to it is what I started asking myself because I know my shit works. So, but they are not ready to accept it. Why? So that kind of built in that curiosity in me. And then I started understanding how the brain and the body and the emotions all need to be in one line or aligned rather, so that you can make those choices for yourself. You can show up better for yourself. You can make those positive changes and accept it. Most people actually start losing weight and then they resist it and then they gain it back. Like they'll drop a couple of kgs or 3, 4
Yeah.
kgs and then they'll be like, okay, this is working and whatever, and they'll go back to their old habits. So that's what I do now. But throughout this journey, I've seen like I said, they didn't my paternal side didn't go all of a sudden. I kept losing one member every time. Like every 2 years, I kept losing one member, and I was like, dude, this is not something that's cool. So that's when I took up the responsibility and I started working with my friends, family members, and then so on and so forth. Fit2 came into existence, and yeah, that's how it happened. But yes, coming to the point that I have noticed, like one thing that I would definitely want to speak on this platform since we are talking, I think the bigger issue at hand, or something that everybody can do, is take care of the vitamin B and vitamin D levels. It might sound very insignificant, but just supplementing this because of the life that we are living nowadays, we are indoors, our bodies are not absorbing the vitamin D from the sunlight properly. That's depleted. That leads to a lot of depletion in our serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine levels. And vitamin B is obviously required for your overall mood and energy. So if we can start supplementing with this, it would be a lot more easier for us to feel motivated and take the right action. Like that is something that I've observed. Again, like I'm not a mental health practitioner, so I don't say that, but yes, I'm definitely trained and licensed to give nutritional information. And I've seen the effects, and there are so many studies out there that says that there's a correlation between your vitamin B and vitamin D levels. So anybody who is kind of struggling with mood disorders, just keeping it as simple as that, mood disorders, not even going to the high levels of mental health disorders, but just mood disorders, they can definitely try supplementing it and they will see a shift in their physical being.
Interestingly, Stanford University, they did a student where they did this study where there were schools that were complaining about children not retaining what they were studying, and they found the vitamin D3, which is the one which we get with sunlight,
Vitamin D.
vitamin D,
Yeah,
right?
D3. Yeah.
Okay, they found the levels low, and they just made a rule in the school. It's a proper study published by them where they told the school that we want the first 1 hour of the day, the child has no subject to study. You take the children out in the garden. There's two things: nature, sunlight,
Yeah.
play, open, expands. Dramatic differences were found in the retentive memory of the children. And that's how that now, I mean, there's a very, I think none of these are isolated aspects. Like I cannot trivialize mental health and say eat right and you won't get depression, or work out and you'll feel good about yourself, or meditate and you'll have emotional awareness. I think we all need to understand that it's consistent effort on multiple aspects of your life that will then bring you to a better state of being. so a lot. It's not so simple as start meditating or spend time. It's everything you need to do. As dramatic as it may sound, the times that I have found my mental and emotional health performing at its best is when I've been in nature, when I've slowed down my life, when I've been more conscious of my thoughts and my emotions, when I've eaten correctly, and when all of that is in sync, which is a consistent
That's when
effort.
life's good.
That's when you're on the path of growth, I would say. You've not even, and you'll still have ups and downs, but for me at least, I think that I've learned consistency.
Yeah, life will keep lighting, but you have to have that anchor
Yeah.
of, like how I said, a system that works for your nutrition, your movement, your emotional health, your mental health, overall, like your support system. All of that needs to be kind of, again and again revisited. You need to keep working on it and keep getting better.
And not
Uh,
just on the bad
Perfect. This
days.
was
I
great,
had this
yeah.
issue.
Yes, you did.
Not just, yeah, yeah. I used to only meditate when I'm having a really bad day. When I used to feel like now it's taken me a lot to say no. It's an everyday thing. If I'm having a good day also I'll meditate. If I'm having a bad day also I'll meditate. But everything is an everyday thing.
Yeah. That's such a good phrase. Everything is an everyday thing.
Yeah.
Probably get it on a t-shirt. You should copyright
I've
that.
really enjoyed this conversation and I would love to speak again. I think it's something very we need to really talk about nutrition for mental well-being, definitely.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like we'll have that aligned. I know we're pressed for time. I could just go on and on because there's just so much that we
Yeah.
think on the same
Yeah.
lines. But lastly, like, would you like to leave the viewers or people who are listening to right now with a final thought for right now? Because we will have more of these conversations.
Oh, oh, slow
Mainly
down.
around
That's the
your
name of the
platform. Mainly
podcast.
around your
I
platform.
would say slow down. It's been my life motto for a while now. I think a lot of realizations have come to me about my behaviors or my thought patterns only when I have really forced myself physically, mentally, and emotionally to just hit the pause button and say, there's a lot going wrong in life. Let me get to the root of, you know, what makes me happy, unhappy, motivated. I think if that's one thing I could urge people to, it's just to have a more intimate understanding of yourself with yourself.
Yeah, I think that you couldn't sum it up better because you like slowing down just makes a world of a difference. You do anything where you're like caught up in the environment and trying to work at the pace of the environment, you're kind of messing up with your nervous system. And then eventually the things that you do don't give you the outcome that you want, and you will be like, why aren't things working for me? Because you are not
Mm-hmm.
working in the way that you should be working for things. I see a lot of people who are like constantly fretting for weight loss and they're like, I want to lose my weight, but I'm not able to lose it. I don't know why it's not working. And the minute they just let go of that thought and they take it easy and they just do it without thinking of the end result, detach themselves from the end results, that's when the magic happens.
It's
So,
like a
yeah,
spiritual lesson as well, right? Focus on the journey and not on the destination.
yep, absolutely. Uh, Shaolin Warrior Verma says that love Slow Down with Asta podcast. Great going ahead.
Hi.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you
This
so
has
much, though. I've enjoyed this
I've
conversation.
been following this Shaolin Warrior Verma. I mean, he's the same guy who went to the monastery, right?
Yes, India's first monk to be
Yes,
adopted as first
fabulous.
person to be adopted by the Shaolin Temple in China. Talk
I'm a
about
big
the
fan, sir.
master
I'm a
of
big fan.
discipline. That's him. That's a master of discipline and consistency, I would say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Great,
Thank
great
you so
stuff.
much,
Yeah,
Pratik.
Asta.
Thank you so much. And I really respect even the work that you're doing. I'm happy I got to know your personal journey today and what motivates you to do this work. So I found what the purpose behind Fit Crew is.
My wife.
So that's lovely. Your story, and it hits home because even my parents are diabetic. So the minute you said that, it's my biggest fear that I don't want to end up going down the path that
Yeah.
they have ended up being with their health. But I'm glad I got to know that about you. And I enjoyed this live session so much. I have not paid attention to anyone who, I don't know who has come and gone from this live, but I've enjoyed talking to you. So thank you. Thank you for having
Yes.
me.
what we'll do next time is that we'll ask people to put in their questions in the question box. I'll keep it a little more organized, so then we'll be able to answer
No,
questions better. Yes.
cool. See you. Have
Perfect.
a lovely weekend.
You too,
Thank you, guys. See you.
Asta. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.